Philadelphia. A crisp October afternoon. The sky hung low and grey, a blanket of chill that seeped into the bones. Winds whipped through the streets, carrying swirls of golden leaves that danced erratically around the rumbling buses and hurried pedestrians. Near the entrance to the 42nd Street subway station, a black man huddled between two weathered cardboard sheets, his figure a stark contrast against the bustling urban backdrop. Before him lay an old guitar, its strings slack. The neck scarred from years of neglect, the body faded to a dull brown patina. His name was Eli McAllister, 42 years old. Once he had been a sound engineer for a renowned recording studio in New York, crafting audio landscapes for films and albums that resonated with millions. But a bitter copyright lawsuit coupled with an accident that left his left ear plagued by a persistent phantom buzzing had unraveled his life. The industry turned its back, jobs dried up, debts mounted. He lost his home, his wife, everything. Now he survived on the streets clutching that guitar not to bust for coins, but to anchor himself to some semblance of reality amid the haze of isolation. Each afternoon, Eli positioned himself there amid the cacophony of honking horns, screeching brakes, and the endless shuffle of feet, yet he didn't beg. A scrap of cardboard at his feet bore a scrawled message in white chalk. If you play the song in this guitar, it will sing the truth. Passers-by glanced, some smirked, as that one had once sneered, "You crazy or something?" Eli had only smiled, a weary hollow curve of his lips, as if the world had passed him by, leaving echoes of what once was. Until that day. A woman in a sleek leather coat, dark sunglasses perched on her nose, and AirPods nestled in her ears, paused before him. She was Harper Lynn 30, the creative director of Linverse, an independent media firm known for turning raw stories into viral sensations. Her knack for reading emotions and crafting visuals that pierced the soul had made her a force in the industry. She removed her earbuds, the faint hum of a podcast fading away. Squatting down to his level, she met his gaze. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice cutting through the ambient noise. Eli looked up surprised. It had been weeks since anyone addressed him like that, not as a fixture but as a person. Just someone who used to know how to listen. He replied, his tone steady but laced with a quiet rasp. Harper arched an eyebrow. "I've seen you here all week. No begging, no playing. But that sign says the guitar sings the truth. Got something to hide?" "Want to try?" Eli slid the instrument toward her. She laughed lightly, a sound that carried a hint of skepticism. But curiosity won. She picked it up her fingers, brushing the strings. Strumming a single note, the resonance was clear, deep, vibrating through the air like a long-forgotten whisper. In that instant, Harper shivered, her confident demeanor cracking just a fraction. "What the hell?" she murmured, staring at the guitar as if it had betrayed her. Eli said nothing, his eyes holding hers with the weight of unspoken stories. "You're hurting somewhere, aren't you?" he said softly. Harper froze, her breath catching. She set the guitar down carefully as if it might shatter. "I'll be back," she said, standing abruptly. "I want to know how a homeless guy knows so much." As she walked away, Eli watched her silhouette blend into the crowd. For the first time in months, a flicker of something perhaps hope stirred in his chest. But he pushed it down. Trust was a luxury he could no longer afford. The wind picked up again, scattering leaves like forgotten melodies. Eli pulled his coat tighter, the buzzing in his ear a constant companion in the symphony of silence that enveloped him. The morning after Harper Lynn found herself drawn back to the 42nd Street subway entrance, her leather coat wrapped tightly against the sharpening October wind. The leaves had piled higher overnight, crunching under her boots as she scanned the familiar spot. Eli wasn't there. The cardboard sign lay abandoned, its chalk message smeared by dew. She waited, pacing her mind, replaying the strange resonance of that single guitar note, the way it had pierced through her, unearthing a buried ache she hadn't acknowledged in years. By afternoon, frustration mounted. Harper wasn't used to being ignored. As creative director at Linverse, she chased stories that captivated millions, turning invisible lives into viral phenomena. But this man, this Eli McAllister, had vanished like a ghost. She asked a nearby vendor, describing him, tall, black-weathered face, old guitar. The vendor shrugged. "He comes and goes. Try the old bookstore on Chestnut." She found him on the third day, sheltered under the awning of a dusty second-hand bookshop on Chestnut Street. Rain pattered softly on the tin roof, forming puddles that reflected the gray sky. Eli sat with his back against the wall, the guitar cradled in his lap, eyes distant. The sign was propped nearby, its words defiant in the drizzle. "You're avoiding me," Harper said, standing before him without preamble. Eli glanced up, his expression unchanging. "I'm not avoiding anyone. I just go where there's light." She sat down beside him, uninvited, the damp concrete seeping through her coat. "You talk like a poet." "I used to be a sound engineer," he replied, his voice low and measured. "And a part-time musician. I sat here because the acoustics bounce off the bricks just right. Reminds me of old recording booths." Harper leaned in, intrigued. "Tell me more." He hesitated, fingers tracing the guitar's scarred neck. "I see you can turn my life into content, because I see stories in people," she said. "And yours. It's sitting right here unspoken." Eli sighed, the sound heavy with resignation. He began to speak, halting at first, then flowing like a dam breaking. Years ago in New York, he had been at the top of his game. As a sound engineer for Echo Studios, he mixed tracks for indie films, one earning an Emmy nod for his immersive audio design. "I could hear the soul in a whisper," he said. "Layer frequencies like brushstrokes on canvas." But in 2016, disaster struck. Driving home late from a session, a drunk driver sideswiped his car. Eli woke in the hospital with a concussion and damage to his left ear, a constant infernal buzzing that distorted every sound. "It was like living in a storm," he murmured. "Couldn't mix anymore. Couldn't trust my own hearing." Worst came the lawsuit. Devon Arrow, a major label he freelanced for, accused him of stealing a sound loop from their library, a claim twisted from a collaborative project. The legal battle drained his savings. His wife, Sarah, a music teacher, stood by him at first, but the stress fractured them. "She left with our son Jamal. He was 8 then. Said she couldn't watch me drown. I don't blame her. I was already gone." Harper listened, her usual poise cracking. She thought of her own loss as a brother who overdosed young, leaving her to build walls around her heart. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Eli shrugged. The streets took the rest. No job, no home. This guitar, it's from my old studio days. The only thing that didn't break. She pulled out a notebook, sketching notes. "I'm working on a campaign called Stories Unseen, about people the world overlooks. I want you as the first subject." Eli shook his head. "I don't need pity." "It's not pity," Harper insisted. "It's amplification. Let the world hear you again." He studied her, the rain intensifying around them. Finally, he nodded. "On one condition. You play the song I write. Record it raw. No edits, no effects. Just the truth in the strings." Harper met his gaze, a spark of challenge in her eyes. "Deal." They moved to a quieter alley nearby, sheltered from the downpour. Eli tuned the guitar with practiced hands, the buzzing in his ear a distant hum now. He scribbled notes on a scrap of paper, a simple melody haunting in its simplicity. Harper took the instrument, her fingers tentative at first. As she strummed, the notes unfolded, raw and piercing, echoing off the brick walls like a confession. She felt it, then a wave of emotion crashing over her. The melody stirred memories of her brother, his laughter fading into silence. Tears pricked her eyes, but she played on the rain, blending with the string's vibration. When she finished, Eli took the guitar back gently. "You felt it, didn't you? The truth." Harper nodded, wiping her face. "It's like it knows pain." "That's music," he said. Unfiltered. She recorded it on her phone, the audio capturing the patter of rain, the distant traffic, a symphony of the streets. As she pocketed the device, quiet understanding passed between them. Harper realized this wasn't just his story, it was pulling at her own threads. Eli watched her leave the weight in his chest lighter for the first time in years. But as the rain eased, the shadow lingered. Trusting again meant risking the fall. 3 days after their alleyway station, Harper uploaded the video to Linverse's main channel. Titled simply Eli, the Man with the Guitar That Cries. It featured no flashy edits or overlays, just raw footage, Harper seated on the damp pavement strumming the melody Eli had composed. The camera shook slightly with her movements capturing the rain's patter and distant city hum as natural accompaniment. The notes unfolded in perfectly off-key in places interrupted by a passing siren, but their authenticity cut deep like a raw nerve exposed. Within hours, the views ticked upward. By evening, it hit 50,000. Comments flooded in. "This made me ugly cry on the subway. Who's this guy? The way the strings seem to weep, it's like the guitar knows my heartbreak." It shares spread across platforms, hashtags like Need a Guitar That Cries and like Stories Unseen trending locally. Overnight, the count soared to 500,000. Harper watched from her office, the glow of her screen illuminating her face in the dim room. She hadn't anticipated this velocity the way the video resonated, pulling at invisible threads in viewers' lives. By the 72-hour mark, it reached 2 million views. Media outlets caught wind. A local Philadelphia blog ran a piece, "Viral Street Musician Homeless Man's Melody Touches Millions." Soon, national sites followed. Reporters dug into Eli's background, unearthing archived articles from 2016. Headlines blared, "From Emmy-nominated sound engineer to Streets the Fall of Eli McAllister." Details emerged: the car accident that damaged his hearing, the Devon and Rowe lawsuit accusing him of audio theft. One article quoted court documents. McAllister allegedly repurposed proprietary loops without permission. His disappearance from the industry was painted as a tragic spiral: lost job, divorce, homelessness. Eli saw it unfold from a public library computer, his face paling under the fluorescent lights. He hadn't sought this exposure. The buzzing in his ear intensified, a chaotic symphony mirroring the storm inside him. Comments praised him as a forgotten genius, but others dredged up the lawsuit. Thief of victim sounds shady. He felt exposed raw, like the world was dissecting him anew. Harper's phone buzzed incessantly. Colleagues at Linverse celebrated the metrics engagement rates, author charts, new followers pouring in. But amid the high fives, a shadow loomed. An email arrived from an unknown sender, subject: cease and desist. It was from Charles Devlin, legal director at Devlin and Rowe. The message was terse: "Your video features material potentially derivative of our client's intellectual property. Remove it immediately or face litigation. McAllister remains bound by NDA clauses." Harper stared at the screen, her stomach twisting. She called Eli, but his prepaid phone went to voicemail. Panic set in. Rushing to the subway spot, she found only scattered leaves and an empty cardboard sign. He had vanished again. In her apartment that night, Harper paced the city, lights flickering through her window like accusatory eyes. She replayed the video on loop, the melody haunting her. Why had she pushed her own pain-surfaced memories of her brother, lost to addiction, his final words, a plea she hadn't heeded? Stories Unseen was her way of atonement, amplifying voices like his, but now trusting Eli had dragged him back into the fray. The next morning, Devlin himself appeared at Linverse's office as a sharp-suited man in his 50s with a predatory smile. He demanded a meeting in the boardroom, flanked by 2 associates. "Miss Lynn," he began sliding a thick folder across the table. "Your little viral stunt infringes on our copyrights. That melody echoes elements from a track McAllister worked on for us. We filed preliminary papers." Harper's boss, a pragmatic woman named Carla, shifted uncomfortably. "We have no intent to infringe. It's an original composition." Devlin leaned forward. "Prove it in court, or pull the video and issue it a retraction. Otherwise, we'll sue for $12 million in damages, enough to bury your indie outfit." The room fell silent. Harper's hands clenched under the table. "Eli wrote that fresh. No ties to your old work." Devlin chuckled. "McAllister's a liability. Always was. You think digging him up helps? It'll destroy you both." As he left, Harper felt the weight of her choices. Linverse suspended the campaign pending review. The video was flagged and demonetized, though copies circulated underground. Online supporters rallied petitions fan art of the guitar, even crowdfunding for Eli's comeback. But detractors piled on. Scam artists exposed. Linverse exploiting the wholeness for clicks. Eli, meanwhile, had sought refuge in a shelter across town. Curled on a cot, he wrestled with regret. The buzzing in his ear mocked him, a relentless reminder of his fractures. He thought of Jamal, his son, now 14, living with Sarah in a quiet suburb. He hadn't seen the boy since the divorce, too ashamed to reach out, but the video's ripple had stirred something. What if this exposure reached them? What if it hurt them? Days blurred. Harper combed the streets, asking vendors, checking alleys. Her own life unraveled, sleepless nights, strained meetings at work. One evening, alone in her office, she scrolled through comments. This song saved me from a dark place. Eli's story is mine, overlooked, but still here. Tears fell. She had believed in him not for views, but because his silence mirrored her own unspoken grief. Then her phone rang, an unknown number. Harper. Eli's voice steady but weary. Relief flooded her. Where are you? A shelter on Broad. I saw the news, the lawsuit. Don't run, she pleaded. We can fight this. A pause stretched. I didn't ask for this spotlight. But you deserve it, she said. And I'm not letting them silence you again. Eli exhaled. All right, I'll come back. But this time we do it right, no more hiding. As he hung up, the rain outside intensified drumming against the windows like an impending crescendo. The truth in the strings had awakened a storm, and neither could turn back now. The morning light filtered through the grimy windows of the Broad Street shelter, casting long shadows across the rows of cots. Eli McAllister lay awake, staring at the ceiling cracks that resembled fractured melodies. The buzzing in his ear was a relentless drone amplified by the night's restless thoughts. Harper's voice echoed in his mind. I'm not letting them silence you again. He had agreed to return, but first there was unfinished business, a ghost from his past that the viral storm had awakened. He rose quietly, slipping into his worn coat. The city outside was awakening vendors, setting up carts, commuters rushing by. Eli boarded a bus to the suburbs, his guitar slung over his shoulder like a shield. Adams West High School loomed ahead, a brick building with manicured lawns that screamed normalcy, a world he had been exiled from. Sarah taught music there, molding young talents while he had faded into obscurity. He waited in the hallway after classes ended, heart pounding. Students streamed out laughter and chatter filling the air. Then she appeared Sarah, her hair tied back, carrying a stack of sheet music. She froze when she saw him, her eyes widening in a mix of shock and guarded recognition. Eli, she whispered, glancing around, as if expecting judgment. What are you doing here? He swallowed hard, the buzzing, swelling like a warning. I didn't come to disrupt your life, or Jamal's. Her face tightened at the mention of their son. Then why now, after 6 years? Eli pulled a folded paper from his pocket, the melody he had written for Harper. This is the last thing I have to give. If he wants to learn guitar, teach him this. It's clean. No ties to the old mess. Sarah took the paper, her fingers brushing his. She unfolded it, scanning the notes. You wrote this recently? He nodded. The world's digging me up again. A video went viral. They're suing over it, Devlin and Rowe. She sighed, leaning against the wall. I saw the headlines. A forgotten genius returns. But Eli, you were never forgotten here. Jamal asks about you sometimes. I tell him you were brilliant, but life broke you. Flashback assaulted him, the courtroom battles nights, arguing over bills, Sarah's tears as she packed. The lawsuit had poisoned everything. You left because I couldn't fight anymore, he said softly. The buzzing drowned out everything. Even us. She met his gaze, no anger, left only sorrow. I left because you stopped fighting for yourself, for us. But look at you now, writing again, standing here. Don't run this time, Eli. Stand up for Jamal, for whoever made that video believe in you. He nodded, throat tight. I'm trying. I tell him his dad never stopped listening. As he turned to leave, a boy emerged from a classroom tall for 14, with Eli's eyes and Sarah's warm smile. Jamal paused, staring. Mom, who's this? Sarah hesitated, then. Your father, Jamal? Eli? The boy's expression shifted from confusion to tentative curiosity. Eli extended a hand. Hey kid, want to hear a song? Meanwhile, across town in a packed press room at City Hall, Harper Lynn stood at a podium, microphones clustered like vultures. Flanked by her lawyer and a few Linverse supporters, she faced the cameras. The air hummed with tension, reporters whispering about the lawsuit, Devlin and Rowe's threats looming large. Ladies and gentlemen, Harper began, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. I've been accused of infringing on intellectual property by sharing Eli McAllister's original composition, but let me be clear, this is not theft. It's truth. Charles Devlin sat in the front row, arms crossed his face, a mask of smug assurance. He had arrived early, folder in hand, ready to dismantle her. Harper continued. Eli wrote that melody fresh in an alley during a rainstorm. No derivatives, no echoes of old work, and I have proof. She signaled, and the screen behind her lit up with the raw footage timestamped unedited. This video logs the creation date, clear as day. Murmurs rippled through the room. Devlin stood abruptly. That's inadmissible. Our claim is based on sonic similarities elements from our library that McAllister accessed years ago. Harper's lawyer interjected. We've secured a personal copyright license for Eli's song, with affidavits stating it's an original work inspired by personal memory, not proprietary assets. Devlin slammed his folder on the seat. Memories, that's a loophole. We'll bury you in court. The room erupted in flashes and questions. Harper held firm. If believing in someone's story is a crime, then sue me. But the world has heard it, and they know the difference between echoes and a genuine cry. As chaos ensued, the doors at the back swung open. Eli entered, guitar in hand, his presence cutting through the noise like a clear note. Heads turned, reporters whispered. Devlin's eyes narrowed. Eli approached the podium, nodding to Harper. She stepped aside, surprise flickering across her face. I'm Eli McAllister, he announced, voice amplified by the mics. That song is mine, born from silence, not your studios. The similarities you claim, they're from my life nights on the street, the buzz in my ear, losses you can't copyright. A reporter shouted, poof. Eli set the guitar down. Play it yourselves? No effects. Feel it. Devlin protested. Oh, this is a stunt. but the tide shifted. Harper's team distributed copies of the affidavits. Whisper's good timestamps matched no overlaps with Devlin's catalog. The plot twist unfolded. Eli's melody drew from personal sound memories, fragments of his accident and family untouchable by law. Devlin's face reddened. "You'll regret this," he muttered, storming out as cameras flashed. The press conference dissolved into applause. Harper turned to Eli, eyes wide. "You came." "Had to," he said. "For once, I couldn't stay silent." Later, outside under the fading sun, Eli reunited with Sarah and Jamal, who had watched the live stream. Jamal hugged him tentatively, then asked, "Dad, can I play that song with you?" Eli knelt, handing over the guitar. As Jamal strummed the first notes, hesitant but true, Eli felt the buzzing fade, just for a moment. Father and son, strings vibrating in harmony. Harper watched from afar, a quiet smile forming. The storm had broken, but the real healing was just beginning. 1 month later, under the arched ceilings of Union Hall, the very venue that had rejected Eli's audition a decade ago, a special concert unfolded. No velvet robes or VIP sections barred entry, the doors swung open to all. Posters outside bore a simple message, for those the world ignored. The auditorium filled gradually, a mosaic of faces, street vendors, clutching tickets, donated anonymously young musicians with notebooks and hand office workers seeking solace after long days. In the front row sat Sarah and Jamal, his son's eyes wide with anticipation. Harper occupied a seat nearby, the freshly minted copyright papers for Eli's song folded neatly in her lap. Eli stepped onto the stage alone, spotlight casting a warm halo around him. He wore a simple grey suit borrowed from a shelter friend, the fabric hanging loosely on his frame. The old guitar rested on a stool beside him, its polished body gleaming under the lights, a far cry from its street-worn state. The audience hushed as he sat adjusting the strings with deliberate care. The buzzing in his left ear persisted, a faint undercurrent, but tonight it felt like part of the harmony rather than discord. He closed his eyes, fingers hovering over the frets. Then he began to play. No vocals accompanied the melody, just the pure resonance of strings. Each note unfolded like a chapter of the low trembling lows evoking nights under unforgiving skies, the sharp plucks mirroring rejections that stung like slaps. Midway, the tempo softened, rising into hopeful swells that spoke of rediscovery of voices emerging from silence. The audience leaned forward, some wiping tears, others nodding, as if the music articulated their own unspoken burdens. Jamal watched intently, his hands mimicking the chords on an invisible instrument. As the final note faded, echoing through the hall, applause erupted, not thunderous, but profound, a collective exhale. Eli stood bowing slightly, his face etched with quiet gratitude. Backstage, away from the dispersing crowd, he reunited with Sarah and Jamal. "That was you, Dad," Jamal said, voice cracking with pride. "All of it." Eli pulled him into an embrace, feeling the boy's warmth mend a fracture long ignored. Sarah smiled faintly. "You're back where you belong with us?" Harper approached as the family moment lingered, her presence a gentle intrusion. Eli turned to her, the guitar still in hand. "What do you think I should call it? The piece?" She considered, eyes reflecting the dim stage lights. "The first yes, and the first time the world nodded back at you." He chuckled softly, the sound genuine, unbroken. "Fitting. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." The conversation drifted into the night as they walked out together. Eli's life pieced itself anew, weekends with Jamal learning to blend his old skills with new realities. Sarah welcomed him cautiously into their world, not as a husband, but as a father, reclaiming his role. The lawsuit's defeat had humbled Devlin and Rowe. They withdrew claims, issuing a quiet apology buried in legal jargon. Linverse thrived, stories unseen, expanding into a series that amplified more overlooked voices. Harper and Eli's bond deepened subtly, a shared coffee turning into walks through autumn parks, conversations weaving their pains into mutual healing. She confided in him about her brother, the guilt that had driven her to chase stories. He listened, his ears buzzed, no longer a barrier, but a reminder of resilience. In quiet moments, Eli reflected on the journey from cardboard shelters to spotlit stages. Music had been his anchor, pulling him from the depths. Now with family restored and purpose reignited, he stood taller. On the empty stage of Union Hall, long after the lights dimmed, Eli lingered alone. He strummed a single note, smiling at its clarity. For the first time in years, his laughter rang out whole, unfractured, a melody of its own.